Hey, welcome back, Shoot Extraordinary Conference. We hope that you are loving the education that you're getting, hanging out with our speakers, with this community right now. We are so excited that we're just getting started, and I am joined by my great friend, Ute Reckhorn, who is going to be teaching our next course. Ute, my friend, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. Thank you for having me, Michael.
Yes, we are so excited. Tell us a little bit about your journey into Lensbaby.
So my journey with Lensbaby started probably 5 to 6 years ago, and I still remember how I got my first Lensbaby. It was a composer with a Sweet 50, and that literally changed the way I saw the world. And yeah, made me venture out and try out things that I would never have done with any other lens. And I just fell in love with the lens, and that was the beginning.
Yeah, sometimes it's like that, right? If you were to try to say what that moment was like for you, what was it about the composer and Sweet 50 that really changed things? What was it about the way it looked, the way it felt, the way you felt? What was that like?
I think it was all of the above. I'm a pretty adventurous person. So, and I got to a point in my photography where I was a little bored with conventional lenses and I felt something was lacking in my work. And then I got a Composer Pro. I tested it and I still remember how I went out and I was working with it and it was like mind blowing. You know, I loved how it was so playful and unpredictable. And then later when I was at home and I was uploading the pictures, I was just blown away with how things look so different and have like a dreamy touch for me, but can also be very playful. And I guess it matched my personality. So that was my first moment.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And sometimes those things just happen. It's serendipity in the universe saying, hey, this
Yeah.
thing is for you.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very excited about your course right now. Can you tell us what to expect as we watch?
So I will talk a little bit more in detail about my creative process and cover a lot of what we just touched. I will talk about how Lensbaby products make me feel and how I use it to my advantage in my kind of work. So my work is beach related and often has a very peaceful feel. And Lensbaby products are a big part of how my work looks and the reason behind why it looks the way it does. And I just love how it adds a lot of playfulness to my photography. And that's what I will talk about in my upcoming presentation.
That's amazing. I don't know about everyone watching right now, but I can't wait. Shoot Extraordinary Conference. It's time to step into education again. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and social media at Lensbaby USA, and we'll see you guys after the class.
All right. Can't wait to get started.
Hello and welcome. I'm Ute Reckhorn, also known as California Lover on Instagram. Today I would like to welcome you to my talk here about Light Inspired, a deep dive into my creative process. I would like to introduce you to my work, how it works, how I go out and take my pictures. And then from there I will show you actual pictures and then we will finish off with talking about what you do when you're back at home and you have your beautiful work with you. But for now, let's dive right in and get started. So I'm not sure if you are familiar with my work. As the name says, I live in California and I love California. And that's basically what my work is about. You will see a lot of beaches and seagulls and the ocean when you look at my work. A while ago, I started craving emotions and something special in my photography, and that's when Lensbaby came along. And yeah, it had a huge impact on my work, and this is what I would like to cover for you today, because a lot of people keep asking me, how do you produce your work? How do you get emotions in your pictures? And how do you get this feeling of peace in your pictures? And yeah, so what I do on a normal day, photography for me is a daily practice. I think this is what is most important. On a normal day, I leave the house after thinking about what kind of pictures I want to take on a certain day. It starts all with thinking about what kind of lens should I take? So for me, it's always easier to take one lens instead of having a big bag on me that's getting heavy. So some days I might feel like landscapes, and that's when my Lensbaby, my Velvet 28, comes into play. I love this lens because it can cover anything from macro to landscape, and I love the bokeh. So since you can get really close to your subject, you can create awesome effects with something that is glittery, sparkling in the foreground. On other days, when I'm feeling a little adventurous, I might pick my other favorite tools, the Composer 2. What I love about this thing is it can be moved, and then it sits, locks, and you start taking your pictures. It also has an interchangeable lens system. So in this case, it's equipped with the Edge 50, but you can also use a twist or any other Lensbaby system that is available for this system. When I'm feeling really adventurous, my Spark comes into play. This is something I actually often carry in my pocket, so it's just in case as a backup solution. This one, in comparison to that one, you cannot lock, so it keeps moving. It's almost like a dance, but exactly like here, it has interchangeable optics, so you can use the edge, the sweep, the twist optic. But it is definitely an advanced system, so it's not a beginner lens. So these gems that I just talked about, I use them on my Canon Mark IV. They give me enough artistic freedom that I do not add any other effect. So the Omni filter that I also love to use, I rarely ever use them in combination with these specialty lenses. What I do instead is I grab my Fuji, which is a nice lightweight camera, and I really enjoy that because it almost fits into my pocket and I don't have to bring a big bag. And instead of bringing multiple lenses, I only use one lens. And if you compare the diameter of this lens to something like that, you can see that this is a lot larger than this. And if you compare to how you cover with the Omni filters that I love to use in conjunction with the Fuji, see, this covers a big portion of the lens in comparison to this, where I have a huger piece of glass to cover. If I hold that in front of it, it is just not the same. So the more you can cover of your lens, the nicer the effect of the prism melts into the picture. The less you can cover, it looks a little, it looks like there is one edge of the picture with an effect, and it often doesn't make any sense. That's my personal experience. So this is why I love to use all these little pieces of glass, all these Omni filters with my Fuji camera. 1, 2, 3, or 4, and I always make sure I pick a few that create different effects. Like this one will create colors in your photography and a fractured look. This one will create like a light streak, and then this one will create like little light bubbles in your pictures, and since this has this line here, also kind of a fractured look. And what I like about these little things is if you have like a little bag, you can put them in there, and you can even put them in your pocket. So they always come in handy. Well, and then once my bag is packed, I take off. Typically, like I said, in the afternoon, 2 hours before sunset, because I just love the golden hour here in California. And yeah, it's just gorgeous light. And it's also my time of relaxation and calming down. So photography for me is less of a job. It's almost like mental yoga, if you want. I just love to be there and to be in a moment and to arrive. So I take my bag, I park my car, I get out, I get started. And often I feel pressured, under pressure. And the weird thing about that is it's me. I'm putting the pressure on me. So most afternoons I actually worry. I'm like, oh, do I really want to go out? Will I create something? Will I find something meaningful today? And that's something I really want to share with you, because I think a lot of great pictures look like they just happened. You were there at the right time, or you have all the experience in the world, and this is why you created the picture. In my case, that's not the case. So for me, it's a daily practice. I have to overcome this initial fear, worry, ooh, maybe I don't get anything today. And there are many afternoons where I really don't get anything. And over the time, over the years, I learned it's not what it is about. It's about going out, arriving, and then once you're there, once you are in the moment and you take it all in and you live the beauty, then the magic is happening. And then you start seeing things, and then you see the light, and then you're there, and then you take all these pictures that you would probably not be able to take when you're under pressure and when you're rushed and when you don't take the time to come to arrive. So that's one thing I really find super interesting and important, and where I hope it is good information for you to think about your approach and how you make sure that you calm down before you actually work. Another thing that I do to keep myself motivated is I work on a 365 project. So that's nothing I always publish, but I still do it, and I actually start a new one in January, and that's something you can join me in if you want to. Besides that, get prints. So print your work. That is also something that does make a big difference in how you feel about your work. And if you only get 10 prints per month and look at them at the end of the year, you have this huge collection and you will see how your work has developed. Another thing to stay motivated is to involve the community. Projects like the Front Step project or something for your local coffee store can make a huge difference in how you feel about your photography. As soon as you start involving the community and you feel like you're part of a community, your work becomes more meaningful. It's something I have done in the past. I started a few projects and it has had a huge impact on my photography and how I feel about it. But I think that's it for now, and I really can't wait to show you my work now. In case you have questions, please don't hesitate. You can contact me via social media. Just DM me if you have any questions at the end of this. But for now, let's get started and let's have fun here. When I leave my house in the afternoon to take pictures, it is as much about finding balance as it is about relaxation and creativity. I just need to calm down most days after a long day of work, and to take my camera out helps me to do that. Honestly, the second I arrive, I first need to take a deep breath and look around and take the beauty in and open my mind and my soul to what's in front of me before I really start seeing. And then once I have achieved that, and that happens while I sometimes just close my eyes or take a deep breath, I start seeing things that are there, but you don't really see them with the naked eye. Part of that is, of course, experience of many years. So I've practiced for a long time by now. And it's also about how you see the light hitting a subject. But mainly for me, it is getting in the mood and almost dancing with my lens, with the possibilities, with the beauty around me. And it's no longer about using the camera. I mean, the camera is the tool to create all these pictures, but it's not the driver. The driver is how I feel and how I start taking in what is around me. It's been a long journey for me to get where I'm now. So initially, I used regular lenses like you do as a beginner, and I wasn't really satisfied with what I saw. In my pictures, it felt like all that had been seen before. and I craved more. I wanted to see emotions in my pictures, and I tried different techniques to get there. So first I played with long exposures and slow shutter speeds. Eventually I started adding prisms to my work, but I was still not happy, still not satisfied. It was still not what I wanted. Some things were just not predictable enough. Others, just like the long exposure, other techniques like doubled exposure took a long time. I had to fumble with settings that didn't make me happy. And the first prisms I tried, I ordered at Amazon. It was a cheap and large thing that did not help me to create the result that I wanted to see. I almost felt like it looked a little cold, and I wasn't really conscious about what I was looking for, but I clearly felt I was lacking in something. So then a few years ago, I discovered Lensbaby, and I started working with these so-called specialty lenses. Some people told me they are soft focus lenses, and the way they made that sound was a little, almost something is wrong with that. But I think being German in America and having an accent and often feeling like not being part of something bigger, or let's call it being an immigrant, helped me to embrace it and to say, you know what, I've lived with this kind of stigma for such a long time, I might as well embrace it. And yeah, so I started working with Lensbaby lenses, and I fell in love with the joyful and playful approach. I don't really plan my pictures. I'm not a very technical photographer. I always say I feel my pictures, and that's only partially true because, of course, the first years of trying the old-fashioned techniques and getting to know about rules and learning the basics, all this comes into play when I use my Lensbaby products. But I think it's like a good marriage of technique and letting go. So I remember the first time I photographed something that felt like I had created more than I could see with the naked eye happened actually when I found a piece of glass, broken bottle, and it was a green bottle, and I was taking pictures of my daughter and she was in a green jacket, and I started wondering, how would that look? So we took pictures, and I really fell in love with these pictures, but it wasn't really something I could repeat because glass is, as we all know, I mean, you can hurt yourself. So I put it away after trying it once, but it got stuck in my mind. It's like, oh, that was really interesting. And then shortly after that, I was introduced to Omni filters. And if you watch me how I use them when I go out, you can see it really is more like playing with the effects, and it's very intuitive. I never think, oh, I need to use this filter to get that effect. It's honestly, wow, I love what I see here. How can I make that more interesting, more special? And I love how you can hide things while using an Omni filter. So let's say the scene itself is pretty, but there is something that is distracting. Holding a prism in front of a lens is a good way to hide certain areas and to make them part of the picture, but in a dreamy way, in a way that it is fun. So after trying all this out for landscapes, I ventured out to try it with people, try prisms in portraits. And the approach is very similar. When I'm around my daughter, it's like we play together and we have fun. We spend time together. And I learned if she's not enjoying what we do, she will not come back. So of course I make sure that it feels good for her. So I try to keep it short and brief, and So it's a very basic setup. So one thing that I learned over time is that I create typically better results if I don't shoot right into the sun with a prism. So if I shoot into the light with a prism, I will do that after sunset. But as long as the sun is above the horizon, I have the sun coming in from the side to create kind of a softer look, not overpowering. And when I work with people, I try to have the same kind of energy around them that I have to use around my daughter. I try to keep it short and playful. I try to find this connection with them. I try to learn about them while I take their pictures, their portraits. And while I get to know the human in front of me a little better, it's a very intuitive approach of wanting to use maybe the twist 60 for this vintage film-like feel and the swirly background, or adding prisms to mimic a more playful character. And people who book me know my photography and they want that kind of look. I was asked before if I use it with my clients, and yes, I do. I mean, I also use regular lenses, but I think what most people want when they work with me is that kind of different look. They like light flares and they like light leaks, and that's what I love to create. So for me, that is just a natural approach, and I don't even think about it. I don't even think about that this would be weird. I think it's adding another layer of interest to your pictures when you work with Lensbaby. I learned most people really appreciate if they feel that they look unique in my work, because we all have our personalities and we love to showcase that, and Lensbaby helps me to do that for me. It's like using an artistic brush instead of a regular pen, I guess. Some days I feel like going out and doing street photography. And when I use my Omni filters to do that, what I really love about it is I focus on the filters and on the pictures and not so much on the people around me. When I first tried street photography, I felt very self-conscious, and people would ask me when I showed up with my big lenses, and they were like, "Oh, are you a photographer?" And I wasn't very brave at that stage, so I would almost want to hide. But over the years, that became more natural for me. And yeah, I learned that using smaller lenses and prisms and being deep into your own work kind of takes away from the people around me. So I still watch them, and I still feel like I'm part of a bigger scene, but I don't feel so self-conscious anymore, and that allows me to take pictures that I would normally maybe be a little shy and not want to take. A question that I often hear is, how do you choose your Omni filter? And the truth is, I don't really choose a filter. I almost feel like the filter chooses me. The more you try these filters, the more you will become familiar with them. And in the end, it starts feeling like second nature to grab for the stretch glass and know, oh, this will stretch colors in certain areas of your pictures, or it will allow you to have a reflection in your picture, or to grab for the more colorful one that looks like a kaleidoscope. So I just play with these things again, and I love to use my viewfinder on the back of the camera to see what I create, and often that will give me a hint or inspire me to try something else, something new, if I'm not really happy with the result that I saw. I think to be open to create many pictures and to know not everyone will be a winner, but to want to play with them and to have fun while you do it is my way to create work that surprises or looks like a masterpiece. I just love how these filters give me like a childlike feeling. It's really making everything easier. You know, if you have a box of crayons instead of a pencil, you can draw a rainbow, and this is what I do when I use my Omni filters. Even though my approach is mostly very intuitive, there are a few tips that I would like to share with you here today. So what I learned is, most importantly, remember to shoot wide open. So for me, f2.8 is what I use most often. If you shut your lens down to a smaller aperture, you will see the piece of glass in front of your lens in your pictures, and it will not look so good. Also, playing with the position and the distance of the prism in relation to your lens is important to see on the viewfinder different results and to find out what you like best. I also recommend to avoid shooting against the sun because the effect is quite harsh. Only shortly before sunset, you might get away with that. But for me, side light works much better. And another trick that I learned is to use the filters during the hour after sunset, during the so-called blue hour. So the kaleidoscope filter, for example, will show its colors once the sun is below the horizon. And that's what I really love to play with, because you get these magical worlds. It's that kind of fractured look and super colorful, almost like you painted with many different colors over your picture. I hardly ever use the filter system that comes with the Omni filters, because I love to use my filters and to be a little free. But if you want to be more in control of your filter, I recommend to use the filters, the filter system, and attach the ones with the magnetic balls to your filter system. That is also nice if you want to recreate a picture, or let's say you want to use multiple Omni filters in your picture. But besides that, I really recommend be open, be free, because at the end of the day, only you have to love your work and everything else will fall into place. Alright guys, now that we have covered all that, I would like to talk to you what happens when I come back home from my little photography tours. So honestly, I let my pictures sit on a memory card for a few days. Why? Well, if I start looking at my pictures right after I come home, I have such a close connection to the moment that I'm not ready to see the pictures. Anytime, it's almost like drinking good wine, it needs to age a little. So a few days later, I will upload my pictures to my computer, and then I'll start my little process. So what I do first is I build a collection where I pick pictures that stop me in my scroll. Those are pictures that are often weird. You wonder why weird, right? Well, what looks interesting and emotive to the audience can actually be a weird moment in real life that you have captured, and you still remember that it was just a weird moment, but the picture can still be very raw and emotional. It can stop you. And those pictures that stop me in my scroll, those are the pictures that go in my final selection. So I built this collection and then I start editing my pictures. My editing process is pretty straightforward because I feel a lot of the effects that are already there, because I use the Lensbaby lenses or the Omni ones. There's not much I have to do. So I like to work with presets, visco film presets. And then, yeah, typically I adjust maybe the exposure, the sharpness, the contrast a little bit. Maybe the crop if something is in the picture that should not be there, or I straighten the horizon, and that's pretty much it. Once I start downloading my pictures, it's actually often surprising how unpolished these pictures look. And that's a tip for you. Be okay with that, because it is a playful approach, and those pictures are not your typical traditional results that you see when you use traditional lenses, but that's the beauty. And sometimes I need time to see that beauty and to be okay with it. And then even pictures that are out of focus can have a certain kind of magic if you are willing to let them sit for a while and then just see that kind of magic. So besides that, that's pretty much it. I'm happy when I see this collection, when I, a few days after going to the beach, look at my pictures and when they bring back these memories to me. And then I start sharing my pictures on Instagram or social media. And like I said at the beginning, don't forget to print your work. It is so important. Because taking the picture and then editing it and sharing it on social media is not all. You know, there's more to your work, and you will only be able to see that when you start printing your work. I don't know if you have more questions. I mentioned that before. You can contact me via social media, California Lover. If you have questions, I'm always there for you. And I hope you found this little talk helpful. And yeah, go on and listen to the rest. There's a lot of interesting speakers coming up. And yeah, I hope you have a good time and happy holidays.
Dreamy artistic images.
Emotive and soulful imagery.
That extra dimension and quirkiness.
Really unique images.
Se olvidaron completamente.
Extraordinary results.
Creamy bokeh and a dreamy feel.
Creative and quirky landscapes.
Unique blur effect.
Fun flares.
Poetic, oniric look.
Something extraordinary.
Wow. I don't know about you guys, Shoot Extraordinary Conference, but not only was that inspiring and powerful and beautiful, I'm like, can I go to California right now? Ute, thank you so much for that amazing presentation. Shoot Extraordinary Conference, please ask your questions in the comments, like, share, follow, all of the things. My friend, how are you today?
Pretty good. Hi, Michael. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. That was amazing. And Shoot Extraordinary Conference, if you don't know this was her first presentation ever. Bravo. Bravo. Absolutely amazing. And you probably have seen in so many of the comments throughout today, everyone is feeling inspired. Everyone is feeling fired up. And you just brought such an amazing presence to this. I'm going to actually watch that again just because I was like, I want to see that picture and that picture and that picture. And as someone who is so close to Lensbaby, I get to see everyone's pictures all the time. And the array of work that you have is so phenomenal. The question that I want to start with is, every day you set yourself up to go out and shoot and to step into that thing that fills you so much. Why do you do that? What is it about photography that drives you?
I guess you answered that. It just fills my cup. It makes me happy. So I feel like I have a pretty stressful life, given the fact that we have 2 dogs and my husband has a challenging job and 3 kids at home and COVID and so on and so on. The list is endless. But to go out and take my pictures allows me to be the artist that I want to be, instead of being the one who takes care of the family, the household, and runs all the errands. So it just makes me so happy, and that's a good reason to go out.
Yeah, I mean, what other reason than it makes me happy, right? I have to say this when I think about that. One of the things you talked about is just feeling it intuitively, right?
Yeah.
So often, and you mentioned this at the start of your presentation of like feeling that self-imposed pressure. How do you continue to like move through that pressure and still like follow that gut instinct when you have the camera in front of your face?
I think it's like a learning experience by now. I know I feel that pressure and I know I have to overcome it. So Dana mentioned Elizabeth Gilbert before, and I also love her. And she mentions that in a creative process, fear is always with you. And her way of dealing with fear is to tell fear, hey, you are part of the ride. You can be in the car, but you will never, ever get the steering wheel. And this is my mantra.
Yeah, that's a beautiful mantra to have, and one that I hope we all can instill in ourselves. But as you know, it's quite the process. So, Shoot Extraordinary Conference, we have a ton of questions from you guys. Ute, I'm going to pop in here, share some questions with you, starting with Nancy. Do you print your own work or send the photos out to be printed? Also, what Fuji non-lenses are you using on your Fuji camera?
All right, let's start with the technical aspect. So I use my Fuji X-T2 and I just looked it up. I use an 18 millimeter lens. I think it's a 2.8 aperture. This is as wide as it can go. And it's tiny. The diameter of the lens is 52 millimeter. That's perfect for me, but I never take that lens off. So that was question number one. I do not print my work at home. I send my work out, and I have different print stores for different jobs. Let's say fine art prints, I get at one location, and I also work with a local print store for smaller prints. If I want greeting cards, I have another print store, and I recommend to do maybe a Google search and find out who's around you, and then order test prints to find out who can deliver the kind of quality that you need to see.
Great suggestions. And there's so many different places you can get prints. I mean, even your local pharmacy, and like at least you have something. I'm so curious about, because I love prints. I think they're incredibly important. What does the power of having the printed image do for you?
So what I like about prints is I have an office, I have it set up with a large table, and I put prints on the table, and then I start playing with my prints. And the relationships between pictures, a development in my work is something that I only see if I actually have prints on that table. And I also like to have, I mean, not right now it's my family, but back in the days before COVID, I would ask friends, hey, what do you think about this? And what do you see in my work? And that can be super helpful, because sometimes there are patterns that you don't really see until you start printing. Definitely don't see it when you have it only on your hard drive or on your computer. And also to print larger prints allowed me to fall in love with some of my work, with some of my pieces that I might even have forgotten by now. But since they are there in print, they also remind me of where I came from, and that all this is a process.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And there's something too, and maybe it's just me, you may agree, that just holding it like brings up this sense of pride.
Yes, it does, definitely. And then it also helps if the family walks by or friends and like, oh, is that your work? Yeah, there's a huge sense of it's satisfying.
Yeah, amazing. Our next question comes from Doug. What app do you use for post-processing?
I work in Lightroom, and Lightroom does 99% of my work, or does allow me to do my work there. I do very, very little things in Photoshop. Maybe I delete something that I cannot get done in Lightroom, but Lightroom is my workhorse.
And then from LS, do you focus first, then add the filter?
Yes, because I work with my Fuji and it's autofocus. Sometimes I turn the focus off and then I manually focus, or I set the focus and then I change it. But mostly I set the focus first and make sure it's not set in front of my filter, because once, as long as the autofocus is turned on, it will catch the filter, and I don't want that. So either the focus is in one spot of the picture and the filter in another spot of the picture so they can work independently. And if I have the filter in front of my focus spot, then I will turn the autofocus feature off so it doesn't jump back. Hope that
Makes perfect sense. And then from Leanne, what lens do you shoot with the most?
In general, or for this presentation? So in general, my all-time favorite lens is the Composer Pro with the Edge 35. That's a lens that I just adore. I love what you can do with it. It's so flexible, so versatile, and I love the bokeh and everything about it. But if I use my Omni filters, it's definitely my Fuji setup, because I find it a little tricky to combine too many effects.
Yeah, I totally get that. Sometimes you have too much and you don't get anything, and minimalism can definitely be your friend in this process.
Yes, I try to keep it simple.
And finally, just a statement from Cheryl that I think all of us adamantly agree with. Gorgeous work, Ute. Thank you for sharing this process and bravely sharing the insecurities that I think a lot of us struggle against. Your work fills my heart and inspires me.
Oh,
I will say that I entirely agree with that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was a great experience, and thank you for all the love.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our pleasure. Thank you so much. Shoot Extraordinary Conference. Please follow, like, share, tell all of your friends. We have one more amazing speaker to go this afternoon, and we will be back in 19 minutes. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you soon.